Hi guys, it's me back again, ready for another review I got for you today. Review of the show. A lot of people are talking about it right now. It's kind of getting, a lot of mass attention and hype for around the internet. TV show Anime. So Anime actually one of the longest running TV shows right now. Originally started back in the late '60s. Of course, it was the visionary behind it. The producer, writer, director of most of the early episodes of anime was Gerald Anime, who of course titled the show for his last name. Well, fun fact is actually he took his wife's last name. His wife was Geraldine Anime, and his Gerald Anime's maiden name was actually O'Shaughnessy of Scottish descent. But yeah, anime initially it was kind of pretty shitty, especially according to most fans. Lots of different characters that suck dick, like Astro Boy and the Osamatsu Kuns, and just kind of a bunch of boring pieces of shit. And it pretty much stayed that way until in the '70s. After its 10th season, they introduced the character Gundam, and he was probably one of the things that brought this show out of the shitter in terms of ratings, in terms of popularity, in terms of just being good. So Gundam, he kind of revitalized the show to a certain extent and really changed the game, so to speak. Then, of course, you had a lot of characters. Because with the success of Gundam as a character, you had a lot of merch sales. He had like this funny T-shirt that's like, "I'm gonna gun damn you to hell," and everyone was like, "Dude, oh my god!" So they bought a lot of T-shirts of that. So Gerald Anime, who at this point in time, uh, there actually was a period for a while where he had been kicked off of the directing, um, kind of the director spot by Fox TV, who of course own anime. Um, but he had recently come back and made Gundam. So, of course, with the success of Gundam, he decides, okay, well, audiences love this character, so I'm just gonna make a bunch of this type of character. Basically, just gonna make them the character Gundam, a million of him in the show. That's pretty much what he did throughout a lot of the rest of the '70s and '80s of the show. I just made a lot of Gundam ripoffs, pretty much, and the audience, some people like it. Some people loved Gundam. They loved his character so much that they were willing to put up with all these clones of him. I personally, having seen, all 47 seasons of anime, not super a fan of it, to be honest. I much prefer uh, not having a bajillion clones of Mr. Gundam in there. Uh, so eventually, yeah, there's Gundam stuff. Then in the '90s is really where, in my opinion, anime picks up, because there's a lot of episodes of anime. Technically, I guess the bulk of it um, was pretty shitty. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, but it's been picking up within the last 3 decades. So in the '90s, you had several big characters added to the show, storylines developing, stuff. For one, you had the character Evan. Uh, Full name Evangelion, of course, as you fans of the show are probably likely to point out, Mr. Jellion. Um, he was this. He was like kind of a big departure in terms of how the character writing was on the show. He was a much more darker, much more psychological, much more edgier kind of guy. And so, Evan was kind of similar to Gundam, many decades prior. There was kind of a briefer period than, the entirety of the '80s, but there were a lot of people that tried to uh, a lot of characters that were basically just rip-offs of Evan. Um, some of them were actually all right though, as far from what I understand. You had other important shows. Uh, fuck. Boy, I really fucked up this joke right there, didn't I? God damn it. Fuck. So you had other important people reaching their peak popularity in the show at this time. Other important characters. You had Dragon Balls, um, who originally fans were kind of not too sure what to make of him just because of his funny name. They thought he was just kind of a guy who walk in because initially he was introduced as kind of a gimmick character who'd walk into to a scene and go Dragon Balls, and for a while that's all he did. But eventually they kind of gave him his own storyline and character arc and stuff. So eventually he could ask he'd go obviously the classic Dragon Balls. And then also he could go Dragon Balls, like a question mark, and he'd go Dragon Balls, like kind of a more intense, like an exclamation mark at the end of it. Um, so that's probably one of my favorite characters in anime. Moving on though into the show's 2000s era, you had the character Malcolmist, who really changed the game. He was introduced 2004, I believe. I remember that because that's the same day that I was born. It was when Malcolmist showed up, and he was really cool because he had like a metal arm, and he had like a suit of armor, and he kind of was basically just like Siegfried from fucking Soul Calibur 2, except instead of when him in that one skin where he's got like the armor on his legs and he's got the shirt off and he's got the fucking nightmare arm and shit, except instead of nightmare it's just metal as well, and then also put the rest of the armor on him as well. So it's kind of like a mix of those two skins actually from Siegfried from Soul Calibur 2, and it was pretty much a good character. I liked his arm. What else we got? The character of Gantz. He was a funny guy. What a funny Gantz. Funnily enough, not actually related to Ants, the insect, or the DreamWorks motion picture. As kind of I would assume hearing his name Gantz, I'm like, oh, is he some kind of they're like gay ants? And apparently the answer was no. But he was cool. Really big part of my sexual awakening was looking at Gantz in his fucking leather suit. That was fucking hot. Then we've got into the 2010s characters like Madoka Magica. Her fucking character arc, wow. Her hair, the fucking story of her dyeing her hair pink, wow. What a TV revelation. What an amazing show. Avatar: The Last Airbender, Mr. Airbender, what a character. He could even bend the air like a fucking bendy straw. Goddamn amazing. And of course, the most recent character added to anime is me. Believe it or not, yeah, I was. I'm tempted to just record another fucking 4 minutes of me giggling because this video is so funny. I'm so smart for making it.